What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dope and Tape Show. This is going to be a fun one. I love fire pumps, and we're going to talk all about fire pumps. We got two experts here, Mike and Justin. They are one of the influencers for fire pumps on Instagram, and we love all their content, and we love hanging out with them. And Mike's been on fairly recently, and then Justin has been a little while since you've been on the show.
Yes, it
But
has.
super excited to have you guys back. Ask guys, chat. I know we'll bring this up as people start coming in and stuff, but ask all the questions, all of them. I have some questions I want to get into after we kind of hear about y'all stories real quick. Just kind of catch some people up to speed. I want to hear about alignments because that part really it's scary to a lot of people, if they don't do it often, or there's a lot that goes into it, and they're like, am I doing this right? There's some good equipment out there, but some of them is just kind of like what, a protractor or something like that. Like, what are y'all, the little min, you know?
Yeah, dial indicator. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, am I doing this right? And it's a fire pump, it's already very intimidating by how big it is and how much water it pushes and how loud it is. And it's kind of like a complex pre-action system, that's protecting a data center without a control valve above it. It's kind of scary. So yeah, hopefully with this podcast, we can get you guys a little bit more comfortable with fire pumps. That's why I was saying get your questions ready. And Justin, if you can kind of catch up to speed with everybody on your experience and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So I am an influencer for fire pumps. It's a big part of my life at this point. But no, so I am Atlantic Fire Controls. We're the Tornatec reps for the Carolinas, Virginia, and Georgia. I've worked on fire pumps since 2013 now, which is ridiculous that it's now approaching 14 years, but or 16 years, 13 years, sorry. But yeah, so I work on pumps, flow testing, startups, controllers, obviously, diesel engines, the whole gamut. But I stop right at that discharge control valve. Beyond that, that pre-action system you're talking about, Brian, I don't want to know anything about that.
Yo, love your videos, Justin. You really are. I think you're an influencer. Love the Fire Pump Fridays. That's kind of like your thing. You if you make a trend and it sticks and other people do it, to me, you're influencing something, right?
That's right.
Everybody else, thank you for joining. I see Florencio, Chad, what up? Little Bobby, what's going on? Tech trainer Chris, the usuals in the chat. Please hit the like button on your way in. If you're able to share it to your uh, social media, that would be excellent. I see other influencers, quote unquote. Look at my arm. I'm moving it. I'm out of the sling. Thank you. I did
Nice,
fall off my
nice.
snowmobile and blast my
Congratulations.
shoulder and put a couple drywall screws in it, and we're back on the move, baby. We're back on the move. But
It
fire
really looks
pumps.
like
Nice.
wood screws, like the
Mike,
threads are down at the bottom.
where you at, Mike?
I was
Oh,
posting it on my Instagram.
Come on,
oh
Mike. You
yeah,
got to
my
be on
guy.
time.
No, he wanted to flaunt that sick picture right there he's got with the massive fire pump. So everybody, thank you for joining. Guys, thanks for joining us. Let's do it. Let's kick it off. Let's talk fire pumps.
Yeah,
Let's talk about
Mike,
everything you want to talk
would
about them.
you catch us up to speed on kind of your? I know you were just on the show, but maybe whoever came across this pump, maybe by a search, maybe you can catch them up to speed on your experience.
Well, I've been doing this for a couple of years. Nothing as close as Justin over there with his check engine light on his knees at this point in time. Um, but same thing. I just started. Well, I kind of rebranded by making a new Instagram, and it's kind of taken off within the
Tricked
past
me.
month or so. So I think it's doing pretty good, and I hope we'll see this time next year where we are.
Awesome. So let's get into alignments. Why do y'all think it's so intimidating, so scary for someone to do?
Yo, Chris, chill.
Yeah, I know.
Uh, well, there's gonna be different types of alignments. You're gonna have your standard alignment for the straight edge. A lot of people are doing laser alignment now. Justin, I don't know what machine you're using. Would you tell us?
Yeah. So I use the SKF TKSA11 straight edge, or it's like the straight edge laser thing that they
Yeah.
do. So It's like a elevated straight edge alignment.
I think for most people, if anyone's been to alignment school, I haven't. You know, all my experience comes from field experience, minus one course I took at Clark in Ohio with Brian Griffin, the instructor. Great class, by the way. Um, it's all field. So for laser alignment, do you put your I guess your anchor points on the shafts? Would you put them on the hubs
It
or
depends on the situation, but typically
okay.
on the hub. Like if it's a TB Woods coupling and everything's kind of round, then you can't
Right,
do
right.
it. But if it's like a newer KTR, then yeah, definitely
It,
on the
and
coupling.
the reason I bring it up is because I've been told by many people that they've gone to taking an alignment course and it goes on the shaft, and I'm like, yeah, good luck with that in the real world because the
Yeah,
shaft's not always accessible,
yeah.
So kind
Okay,
of
so
use your
what's
best
the
judgment.
what's the hub and what's the shaft, guys, for the rookies out here?
Yeah, so when we talk about couplings, we talk about a different thing than what you sprinkler guys are talking about. You're talking about joining two groove pieces of pipe together or groove
Right.
fittings or whatever. We're talking about joining a driver, which is typically an electric motor on a coupling, and the pump shaft. So it's like a KTR coupling is going to be a spider style coupling. So it's going to like lock in there with an elastomeric insert. Then you've got fault couplings, but what he's referring to as the hub is just like the halves of those couplings.
Okay. Is those like it's a half piece that you get that kind of bolts in on each side of the shaft?
Yeah, so it just slides onto the shaft with some there's a keyway on each one of the shafts, and then there's a sorry, then there's a lock screw
I
that
don't know if
goes
you
on
guys
there.
can see
Boom.
that. That's a
Yeah.
KTR Rotex, as he mentioned. There's different sizes. So it's gonna depend. That one has the spider inside, which is gonna be, I guess, let's call it rubber for now.
That's what
It,
UL really likes.
And
They want to see
and
those.
that's its fail point.
Well,
it,
it can fail, but the whole idea behind that one is that if it does fail, you still have metal to metal to drive the pump, if worst case scenario. Now, if you ever see one that is driving the pump straight metal to metal, it'll fucking shake your teeth out of your head. Like it's brutal how much force there is there.
That's when you got to call one of these guys
Yeah, and you got to replace that
and
stuff.
replace your what's it called?
That'd be the coupling insert.
Okay,
Yeah.
coupling sensor. So if the
But yeah, so
pump is
like for
shaking like crazy, you're like, it's probably the pumping insert, right?
so
it could be.
Matthew
you will
Coates.
have these old school ones that are
Dang, look at Mike go.
I
that
know
is
he's
just
so
rubber,
prepared and just
rubber in
embarrassing
the
me here.
middle. So the problem with these the problem with these is
So
that if
good.
that rubber fails, there's no longer a contact between the
Oh.
driver and the pump. Therefore, yeah, in a low pressure situation, your fire pump controller will call for the driver, but it will spin without the pump. Therefore, you're getting nothing. And if you look at companies like FM Global and stuff like that, once they go in there and do an inspection, they see this and they make you get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys see one of those out there in the wild, probably need to talk to your customer, especially if they have FM Global as their insurance, that they need to replace that coupling. Even though if they're properly aligned, like to me, it's the best coupling. Like they are smooth as shit. Like there's no vibration from those guys. They're great.
Justin, Matthew Coates.
Yeah.
That's your
What's
buddy?
up, Matt? What's up, big
Yeah.
Matt?
He says not to listen to anything you say.
Full of shit.
Full of
Making
shit.
it up as we go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're feisty. They're all buddies. They're all buddies, Chris. It's okay. There's like Chris, and then Chris is with Chris. It's a chat full of Chris. What's up, Chris?
Shout out to Chris.
What else you got, Mike? You got something else you just want to show us? Hell yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be your steel flex coupling, which for a long period of time, this is what FM Global was calling for at most properties they insured. This is all metal to metal contact. There's no rubber, minus the I guess let's call it the O-ring gasket on the hub to prevent the grease from spinning out of the coupling. But Justin, I'm sure you've taken those guards off full of covered grease in the past. So
Yeah, I was about to say when he says grease, that is technically what it is, but it's like the stickiest substance known to man. So like if you're working on those, wear some rubber gloves for sure, so you're not getting it all over your steering
Key
wheel.
pointer. Key
or you
pointer.
can tell your apprentice to do it and it'll be
Yeah, or make
okay.
him do it. That's right.
Yeah.
New
What's the
guy.
most common? What's the most common thing that you're doing when you go and service a turbo diesel fire pump?
So I mean, as standard service is just like oil filter change, oil change, the fuel filters. If it's a modern Clark engine, then we're typically cleaning the air filter because it's a K&N
And you're like
style
an engine
reusable.
mechanic. You're an engine
Yeah,
mechanic at this
right,
point, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
for sure. But there's a whole list of things in a FEA 25 that we've got to go through and make sure that is serviced properly.
Yeah, when it comes down to what we call the engine PM, your standard that I've posted in the past videos of me doing it, like I've had a lot of people reach out and say, "You're supposed to replace the belts. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that," and it's like we provide that service, but good
Yeah,
luck getting your customer to pay for that. A lot of times people are like, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And a lot of times it comes down to, at least on our end, for uh somebody didn't want to pay for it.
I
You
mean,
know,
hey, at least they're actually getting the oil
correct.
change once a year. For God's sakes, there's so many of them out there that have been in service for 15 years and still have the original red filters on them. So there's another pointer, guys. If you go into a pump room and there's oil filters on there that are still painted red, yeah, they've never serviced that engine before. That's still the factory ones.
Who can service the engine? Can a sprinkler company do it, or do we need to get like a mechanic? Or
Eh, anyone competent.
Mm.
I
okay,
like
so
that.
like
I like that,
YouTube,
Mike.
and then change the oil and
Mm.
call
Anyone
it good.
competent.
Little tune up.
That cruising like the
It's
chat is here tonight. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Oh, I see a bunch of 100s and like, yeah, keep pressing that one. Keep pressing that one. I like
yeah,
that
yeah.
response.
Anyone competent, I believe. I feel like I go into facilities every now and then, and I get told by the building engineers that uh someone told them that they're not allowed to touch any of the equipment. That
Right.
they're supposed to call, if they want anything done. I feel
Yeah, it's
like
that transfer of liability for sure.
Well, and there's a lot of liability with the diesel engine service. Like you get some of these, I mean, any Clark engine at this point, but like these C18s and stuff that are over $100,000. Like part of the service is, for instance, you have to clean out the Y strainer on the cooling loop, right? Well, I've been in after other people have serviced an engine and the engine blew up. Well, they serviced the Y strainer, but they never turned the valve back onto it. So engine gets a call to start, comes on and runs with no cooling, and it doesn't like that very long and blows up. So now they're replacing an engine. So
Ouch.
that's what Mike's getting at when he says a competent person. Like you want to make sure it's somebody that's
Really knows
crossing all the
something.
I's and dotting the T's. You know what I mean?
So
Right.
can like any kind of property or a sprinkler company call Clark and request a tech?
They would Clark would recommend a tech to them most likely in
Okay.
that circumstance. So like Clark has affiliation with a lot of like John Deere reps in the area. So if they don't already have a well-known service provider that's a fire pump guy, then they're typically going to go to whoever the nearest Deere rep is.
Okay.
Nice. That's another good pointer.
Actually, now you mentioned cooling. Now sometimes inspectors are out there and they're flowing pumps and on a diesel pump, and then they have trouble getting the cooling line to stop running. I've seen it before. What is some checklists to go by so we can get that, stopped?
Yeah, so I mean, with our current engines, they will keep that solenoid energized after the engine stops running. So it's just to prevent that heat exchanger from heat soaking, right? So you've got that water pump inside the engine is moving when the engine's running, and it's able to keep the engine cool. Well, now when it stops, all that coolant, all that radiant heat there is just going to keep building and keep getting hot. So Clark keeps the cooling loop open for like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, something I can't remember what it is, after it stops running. So if it's a newer unit, then give it a few minutes, look and see if it's uh, gonna shut off on its own.
Protocol.
Yeah.
I like it.
What are some of the common calls you're getting asked to come and fix or look at?
You want to take us some, Mike?
Good question. Do you mean in regards to just the system in general or an engine?
Um, yeah, just the whole fire pump, I know they're separate, but together. Like, I know you're typically not getting calls for engines, I would imagine, but mainly the pump.
Well, given that we cover a lot of area, we are constantly getting calls for engines. But just real quick, stepping back away from that question before I answer it, I feel like one thing that's important is kind of a lot of building engineers get told run the engine once a week, and that's what they do, or they get told this is what you're gonna have to do to run your engine: drop pressure here, open this valve, or whatever the case might be. But they're never actually provided with a pre-checklist before they run the engine, and a lot of times that can cause problems because letting the engine run or getting the engine to run out of an automatic start doesn't mean you're completing your job, your weekly run. There's a lot of things you have to look at. I think one of the most important ones is if you have refillable batteries, verify that there's fluids in there. You don't want to run an engine on a dry cell. It could be very, very bad.
What do you
Yeah, I
put
mean,
in there in the
We
batteries?
was that
What do you put in the batteries?
I personally nothing. I recommend new batteries. A lot of times people want to keep refilling 7, 8 year old battery, and that's just not good. There is recommendations per the manufacturer on how often one should change batteries. So I always recommend if it's low, don't refill it. Just get new batteries.
yeah, I mean, it is ultimately just a piece of equipment, just like your lawnmower is or something like that. So just more important. So you want to check the oil, check the coolant level, and yes, certainly check the batteries. Mike and I, I'm sure, both have plenty of pictures on our phones of exploded batteries. Because I mean, what happens is it gets that fluid gets down below the plates and some electrolytes in there, so it gets down below the plates, and this thing gets a call to start. And those batteries are 1400 amp cold cranking amps. So when it fires, there's all that gas that's now sitting in there, and all it takes is just the smallest little arc, and all that gas will explode and just blow everywhere. Can potentially blind somebody if the electrolyte gets in their eyes. It's a real
Big,
thing,
that's
man.
a big old battery.
Yeah.
When you go to check it, do you need to unhook it, make sure it's not live,
Nah,
or
the
you just pop
refillable
it in?
ones, yeah, the refillable ones have little caps. There's 6 caps on each battery, and you just pop one out and look in there, make sure there's fluid. Pop the next one out, look and see if there's fluid. So it doesn't matter if it's on. Don't look in there while you're trying to crank the thing because it might
Yeah.
blow up in your face. But if it's just sitting there, you're probably okay.
The
Any
chat's going.
questions
The
from the
chat.
chat,
The
Bobby?
chat's going wild. To be honest with you, they're really
It,
coming
it,
through tonight.
I think to answer your question, Brian, moving forward from the engine, I guess a lot of the service calls we get, I want to start off. A common one is mystery pump runs that the
Every
fire
time,
pump kicked on,
every
the jockey
fucking time.
pump kicked on, or whatever. And I always get told, oh, jockey pump controller is bad, fire pump controller is bad, and I'll go over there, and it can be as simple as bad calibration, or if you have older systems, that mercury switch, pressure switch is no good anymore. A common one as well is people go do service work on these systems. And they leave air in the line, and that jockey pump is just running, and then it
Or
causes the overload, and then they're like, "This is not working." Which sorry, I'll let you go right now, Justin. But I always fill up any fire pump system that I work on. If the system's been drained, I fill it up with the fire pump. That's what I do. And a lot of people will think, "Oh no, you don't want to do that. It's gonna blow up something." And if something starts leaking, that problem was already there to begin with.
Facts.
Your system
don't do that on a Friday, guys. Don't do it on a
Well,
always
That's
Friday.
how
do it.
I've.
trapped air. I mean, you're
That's
pushing all
how.
that massive
That's how
water,
my
and then
old
you have
man used to
air in the
do it.
system.
That's
You
how I
leave.
did it. And man, I remember filling with a fire pump with the first time with someone other than my father, and they had that same reaction. What are you doing? I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this thing. Like, let's get out of here. Crank this baby up. Like, and then, and the theory was always what happens with a dry system. A dry system, 6-inch, 8-inch dry system. It's 100% closed, and then it goes 100% open. The fire pump kicks on. Nobody worries about water hammer. And then on a wet system, everybody's so scared about water hammer. It just fill the thing. Fire the pump up. Let's do it. Let's get out of here. Even on a Friday.
All right. Call Bobby for those service calls then. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Brian, just like Mike said, the number one call is always my pumps come on for no good reason. Like it's just this mystery object inside their building that causes alarms to go off and supervisories and phone calls in the middle of the night. And it's anywhere from landscapers filling up water trucks. So I've had fire departments filling up their tanker trucks off of hydrants, and um, eh, maybe last week they were in there to do a service and the guy forgot to turn the jockey pump back on. So fire pump's on, jockey pump's not back on. Pressure is slowly going to leak down and fire the pump off.
So what is like a checklist? Is there like a dummy checklist of when you get that call in the middle of the night and you're going to look at this?
I always blame the jockey pump. So that's my first spot that I look at. So if somebody says the fire pump's coming on and running, the whole job of the jockey pump is to prevent the fire pump from coming on to run. So why is the fire pump not is coming on and running? Let's look at the jockey pump, see if it's turned on, if the pressures are reading something crazy, maybe the pressure switch is bad or the transducer is bad. And then from there we can look and see through like message history or stuff from the Tornatech controller, if it's got some sudden pressure loss or something.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
I got one on the chat here. Who would you say is responsible for the fuel samples for the diesel engine? I'm guessing there's a void between the diesel mechanic provider and the sprinkler contractor.
Or the yearly fuel sample that you're required to test. Is that would that be the question?
Yeah, who
Um,
was responsible for the fuel samples for the diesel?
Hell, if I'm charging it, I'm responsible for it, man.
Right.
You know, it depends on how far out your company is willing to go. You know, whether they provide certain services or not.
That's not a common one. A lot of sprinkler companies don't do that.
Well, we're a fire pump company, so
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, like in sprinkler contractor will go in there, they'll do their pump run, they'll check, make sure it's 3/4 of full and all the other things, but they're not checking
Well,
the fuel.
well, Justin, I guess have you been on site with any John Deere rep or anything along those lines, and you found yourself that these guys are great when it comes to tractors and everything else, and then they see a stationary engine for fire pump system, and they're like, "No, this is wrong. I've never seen this before in my life. I have
Yeah.
voltage here, and I shouldn't have voltage here. Something's wrong." And so when it comes down to the fire pump systems for the engines themselves, I feel like a lot of diesel mechanics do lack a lot of knowledge due to the fact that they're not exposed to this industry. So if you're using a diesel mechanic to do your PMs, I guess they will be technically. I don't think they're responsible to know that they're supposed to check the diesel.
Right.
I don't know how all the other systems work for them, generators and whatnot. But
I would say to answer that question, it's the sprinkler contractor's responsibility to make sure whomever is doing the diesel service is doing that. You know what I mean? Like Mike's saying, a lot of these diesel engine guys are fantastic engine guys, but they might not know what exactly is required per NFPA. So, they're capable of doing it. It just might not be something that they are doing. So I would say just make sure that whomever you've got doing it is doing everything for it, if it's the fuel sampling or whatever.
Those are some great answers. We got another one from Tech Trainer Chris. If my static from the city's 100 psi, what are good start and stops for my jockey pump and the fire pump? Curious what you guys do.
That's going to depend on your max net pressure from the fire pump itself.
Yeah, so whatever the pump churns at. So let's say the fire pump net or total discharge pressure is 170 psi, which is a pretty common thing, right? So we would set the jockey pump to cut out at 170, jockey pump to cut in at 160, and then the fire pump to cut out at 160, and the fire pump to cut in at 150. So we're just staggering 10 psi. So we want, as pressure is dropping, jockey pump is being able to do its thing. If the jockey pump can't keep up, now the big pump comes on to do its thing.
Bing, bang, boom.
Shout out to Chris. Great content as well. I like his page.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah,
Well.
awesome page.
Yeah. So staying on that same topic, I do want to mention that I've had calls uh, after new construction is completed. Let's say you're on one single street, you build whatever complex or facility you want, and then that project gets done, and then they start the new project. So if you set your cutout settings at the jockey pump to be at 170, and they build 6 more facilities down the road, that volume starts to go, that city pressure starts to go down, and it's possible that depending on what jockey pump you have, it might no longer be able to meet that 170.
Yeah.
And that's where another mystery run comes in, where I get a call and the fire pump keeps running for whatever reason, and it's because the jockey pump couldn't keep up. It was never able to build that pressure, and evidently just tripped itself trying to build that pressure.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah,
and then
absolutely.
then what? You just show up and fire up the fire pump, right, Mike?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
That's how actually the first time that me and Bobby talked. I cold called him on Instagram for a question. I sent 2 technicians to a hotel out here in Georgia that they couldn't figure out the problem. The pump kept kicking on, setting off alarm fire. Was it a water flow
I
switch?
bet they know this story. Do you?
Maybe not.
You
Definitely
guys
not
heard?
Mike.
I
You
just
heard
got here, man.
Yeah. Anyway, it was the suction side of the jockey pump that was the check valve that was causing all of it.
Check valve on the suction side of the jockey pump.
Of the jockey pump. Yeah.
Is that common in where you live?
Heck no. It's the first time I ever seen it. I was thinking, I don't know. It's just that's what it ended up being.
When
Changed
we
it, problem solved.
when we build our pump houses and skids, we or our guys at the shop put 2 double check valve on the discharge side in case one were to fail. Um, but that's a big one as well. What we call internal leaks. All the times we're like, well, jockey pump's running because there's a leak, and we get told there's no water anywhere, and it's like, well, your water could be leaking internally back to the city. Another one is through the FDC or test header that you don't see until a larger volume builds down that line.
Yeah, and a lot of times when the fire pump comes on, like we were talking about, the jockey pump has tripped out or something. A very common reason why the jockey pump trips is because it short cycles. And what that means is it comes on, shuts off, comes on, shuts off, boom, 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 right? So that's why Mike's guys are putting back-to-back check valves in there to try to reduce the chance or likelihood of that happening. Another thing you can do is when you're laying out your pump rooms, guys, is keep that sensing line that's on the 1.25" jockey pump line, keep it as far away from the check valve as you can. A lot of times they'll have a T right after the check valve that's going to the sensing line, and now that sensing line is seeing every time that check valve is swinging back, and it's causing some issues. So keep it as far away as you can while
Hold on,
still on that
let's
line.
let's go real back to the double check valve. That's on the jockey line, on the supply line, and the jockey line, back to back. Let's talk about that a
On
little
the
bit.
discharge.
Yeah, on the discharge side.
Yep. Okay, that's new.
Yeah, that's good to know.
We're only required to have one. The
Right.
second one is just for redundancy, kind of
For fun.
for fun.
Case one
To
fails.
charge more.
To
charge more.
To charge more. Like, so I'm trying to understand the concept. To stop that short cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
A lot of times you can put a spring loaded check in there if you just have a single 1.25" swing and it's starting to fail on you. Put a spring loaded in there. Hopefully there's a union somewhere, and makes it a little bit more resilient to that short cycling.
I love breaking apart those check valves on the jockey pump lines. They have well, depends on which one you have. For a lot of times, people, you can take the cap off, but you can't really see that rubber. And some of them have like a little nut on the side that you can unscrew, and there's a pin in there. And what I do is I tap the hell out of the opposite side where that screw is holding that pin, and it pushes that pin out, and then you can pull the flapper out, and then you can inspect it. And let's say everything looks good from the top. Once you remove it, a lot of times you can see there's a cut, or it might just be trash being in there, because it's difficult to work with that flapper in there, and you can't really access it due to the fact that it's just stuck in there. When you lift it, it just covers the top side of the check valve.
Boom, another good tip. Guys are crushing it right now.
And to stay on that cutout that Justin said about the 170, maybe to get into bigger systems, if you have pressure reducing valves, which Justin provided me with a link for a system that I hadn't seen in the past here recently, which was double pressure reducing valve inline.
Yeah.
I don't know if Justin, you want to tell us more about that in a little bit, but when it comes down to the cutting,
No.
to charge more.
when it comes down to that cut in and cut out pressure, that's going to depend. Kind of answering Chris's answer, it's also going to depend on systems like that. You know, if your sensing lines, for the most part, you're supposed to have your sensing line uh, before the discharge isolation valve of the fire pump, and the check valve, the check valve after the fire pump. If you have systems that are higher pressure, you can have that sensing line after the PRVs, as long as the jockey pump sensing line is also afterwards. I've seen people kind of put the jockey line sensing line after and the fire pump sensing line before. Um, I wouldn't recommend that. So if you have that fire pump, and it's many times that I go in there and you have a pressure reducing valve, I'll be like, "Oh, your cutout has to be 225," and they're like, "No, I don't want anything over 150." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I try to explain to people that if that fire pump comes on, it doesn't matter what you said that cut in and cut out to. That fire pump is going to come to build a certain pressure and stop right there. And at that point, you can trigger water flows. You can do a couple different things, but um, it just depends on where you have those sensing lines and what your cut in and cut out will be as well.
Yeah, and that's what drives that cutout pressure being at churn, is to try to prevent the water hammer situation. So like if this pump comes on and churns at 250 psi and you guys set it down to come on at 150, well, it doesn't give a shit about the 150 to 160 setting. It's going to 250 as soon as it comes on and runs. So, fuck whatever's downstream of it, it's going to go.
This is gonna go.
Jeremy, you know JB down in Florida, Justin?
I do know JB.
He says he still needs help wiring the interlock feature for his Tornatech controller.
He's in Florida. He needs to reach out to my buddy Zach down there at GPM United. Shout out to Zach. I got his hat tonight.
Oh, quick switch. Oh yeah, I love linking people up when they need the info. The chat is here.
He's down there in West Palm right there. So he's your boots on the ground for you.
Super close, JB. Write it down. Write it down. Oh, keep hitting those hearts. I like that. So far, so good. You guys have any like pet peeves? What's the pet peeve? What really just irks you and just right under your fingernail type thing?
So it kind of comes and goes, right? Lately for me, I keep running into electricians undersizing wire, whether it's feeders or
Is they trying to save money on that, or they just don't understand?
No, they're just idiots. They don't know what they're doing. So NFPA 20, where actually the NEC Article 695 requires that it's got to be at least 125% of FLA, and you come in there, and like, guys, just look inside the Tornatech panel. You see a cable that's in there, and it's this big, and now you guys are running in a cable that's like that. Like, how does that make any fucking sense? So let's use a little common sense there and maybe talk to an electrical engineer. What about you, Mike?
That definitely irks you right there. I like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
electricians get to me, buddy.
Thank you. I like that.
I'll get one big one for me is me doing a job and someone telling me I can do this too. I went to pump school, and I'm just like,
like
shout out to you, man. But it's just tell your office, man, that you can do it. What do you need me for?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times where you go to, or not plenty of times, there's several times in which you go to a startup and like it is easy. Like everything's done right and it's, you barely have to align it. You just do a flow test and that's it. And it's great. But my God, the ones that aren't like that are just, chaos. And you have to have all this, bullshit stored in your head about, electrical code and fire code and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Get that with
Am I going
get
to
that
shoot
almost with
rocks out of
anything.
this? Yeah,
What's
right.
what's your favorite aspect of the industry, Justin?
Oh, the variety of it. It is always something new and never before thought of by a electrician. So, yeah, I like going to different places every day. Like, I was in Western North Carolina yesterday. I'm in the middle of the state tomorrow, and it's just all over the place all the time and doing a different thing each day. So, I love it. I really do. How about you?
It's the same thing, it's just is the systems could be exactly alike and your problems are going to be different.
Yeah, and seeing guys all across our area too that you might see them uh 3 times in a month and then you might not see them for 2 or 3 years and it's
Yeah,
great to catch up with them and
that's
hey, what have you been
crazy.
working on? What the fuck you been doing with no pumps, man? What's up?
Yeah, and then you get to talking to them and it's like you just saw them yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Hey, anything else from the chat, Bobby?
The chat is going crazy. I mean, Zach's here. He said thanks for the shout out. Electricians are the biggest pet peeves. It isn't in the electrician's scope to wire the controller. It's in the sprinkler contractors, right?
Yep. Sprinkler guys great with their pipe wrenches on some wire.
We
Well,
have Mountain
with
Man
with that,
Paul here from episode 200. He says, "Epic info, y'all. This is Fire Pump Mysteries episode is in my top 5. Great show. That's huge.
oh,
He's a
oh,
celebrity.
ask
200.
him. I asked a question
This is
on that
201. This
podcast.
is episode
Oh,
Yeah,
201.
this is 201.
Jesus Christ. Good
I
job,
watched that
guys.
200 and it was good. And I asked about fire pumps, but I didn't get an answer on those coal mines.
I think I asked about the fire pumps. He is it's just a longer story, and he circled back, and I think
Okay,
because of gravity, he said sometimes they use pumps to get the water to the top of the mine, but because of gravity,
it's
it's
gravity fed systems.
it's
Because I
extreme.
think he mentioned they had the pressure reducing valves on systems like that. I
Yeah,
would assume there's probably a lot of heat expansion on those systems as well.
yeah, we might have to. Yeah, well, he's definitely coming back. We told him that. We might go out there. Bry Guy and I might go out there and do some trout fishing and go hang out with Paul.
Nice.
He low key invited us, so.
Yeah.
So then we got tech trainer Chris. My bros are electricians. It's not common to wire regular fire pumps to the FLA like that. That's why I was trained HVAC guy. I heard FLA thing for fire pumps and it blew my mind.
At what point
Electricians.
is like the breaking point where you have to replace a pump? There's no going back.
There's a couple of different points.
When it's locked up.
So when
It's
you
just
say locked
seized.
up, as in like you take off the bonnet of it and then you can't turn it and it's just seized.
Yeah, like maybe somebody shut off water to it and it comes on and runs for, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes and it
Why is this
locks
darn
down.
thing running again?
Yeah, exactly. I've had fire departments do that shit. Like
Woo!
they get a call and they shut off the OS and Y going to the motherfucker in the pump room while it's still running.
Man.
Like,
I'll solve
yeah,
this issue. I got you.
yeah. There's a whole plethora of reasons why they might need to replace their pump. Just degradation over time, or maybe you suddenly suck a piece of rebar into it and it completely destroys the impeller. Like, just countless things, man.
Sounds like you've been there before.
Yeah, lots of interesting things out
What's
there.
the most interesting thing you found inside an impeller?
So I had a piece of it was a 2000 GPM pump that I was flowing at 150%, so 3000, and
Wow.
I was shooting it off the header, which Mike loves doing too. And I was getting my numbers for 3000, and a piece of mega lug came into the pump, and like just immediately, just the loudest fucking boom you could hear, and then just rattling inside there, extremely loud. Shut it down as quick as I could, and like the pump was destroyed because that mega lug beat the fuck out of the impeller and even was like gouging into the casing itself. So that was the most destructive piece that I've
Ouchie.
come
Like the bo
across.
the bolt, like the actual lug.
Yeah, the piece that like breaks off when you're tightening it up,
Mm-hmm.
somehow that made it into the pipe.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
They didn't do a proper flush.
No, absolutely not.
Let's talk about
But
proper
sometimes
flushing.
it's hard to get 3,000 GPM though,
Yeah,
without a
well, a
pump.
lot of times, they'll think that if they just run the garden hose for 48 hours, that she's flushed like it's a plumbing system, and you really you gotta
Plenty.
flush that baby wide open,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. If you've got a 10-inch line coming in. I mean, there are charts in NFPA 20 that says exactly how much you're supposed to flow per rated GPM of the fire pump. But if you've got a 10-inch line coming in there, you need to be flowing a 10-inch line out. That's what we're flowing with the fire pump, right?
Ding,
So
ding, ding.
you can't be using that great sound that we hear. But yeah, you can't be using 2.5 inch hoses and thinking you're going to get the same kind of velocity in the pipe to move those rocks, move all that debris, right?
Always love to just come right off the header, hard pipe it out, same size, and just right out
Yeah,
however whatever closest door you can get. Just let her have it. Let her
let
eat
her
it.
rip.
Boom. You'll hear everything coming out.
Yep.
What is y'all's opinion on putting all the fire pumps on a water tank? In my area, I'm seeing so much fluctuation with city water. I'd rather have them all on tanks. I've seen a lot of tanks as well going up. Is that the new
In
thing?
the city of Houston, probably about 95% of your systems are tank fed, and a lot of them they're not the standard tanks that most people might see on their systems. They'll be the brake tanks that are located inside the room itself.
How big's the tank usually?
It's gonna depend, but they're not that big. Maybe you're looking at maybe 20, 30,000 gallons
That's a big one that just stands outside.
inside the room. For the bigger tanks that are outside, it is gonna depend. Some of them I've had them be like 250,000, 500,000. Some of them have double tank. So
Yeah. But in terms of is it a good idea to have a water tank? Absolutely, because that's going to be a higher pressure pump now. It's higher horsepower, more money. So yeah, I love it. Put every pump on a tank, man.
And well also the safety factor too. If there ever was some
Absolutely.
kind of water shortage and you had a fire, you still got your own little retention for safety.
Yep.
so that takes us into, if you have tanks, at least just in your area, are they putting altitude valves or manually filled systems or?
It's a variety. Any new one is typically going to be an altitude valve. We are seeing more of the solenoid style altitude valves instead of the ones that just have the big spring
The
on top and the
Are you talking
uh,
about the wired
yeah. So
in?
there's two or three floats inside the water tank to be able to fill with that
Right.
versus the head
Where
pressure of the
where
tank
do you guys want the altitude valve sensing line, so to speak, to tie into?
on the
Like on
tank
what part of
itself.
the tank? Like on the lowest point?
The lowest point of the tank. So but could you tie it into the room anywhere? Into the system? Or it
Well,
always got
No,
to go
because
into the
like
tank?
so if let's say for instance I've seen it several times where they plummet into the fire pump suction line, right? And in theory, yes, it is sitting there static at 13 psi or whatever and will work. But as soon as you go to do an annual flow test or a startup or anything where you're moving water, that pressure is going to drop when the pump comes on, right? So now the altitude valve is going to say, oh, fuck, I got to start filling the tank. And it might not actually need to be filled at that point. It's just sitting lower pressure because of the volume of water moving through the pump. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yep.
So the best way is on the tank itself.
so also, at least in my area, not all the altitude valves are located outside near the tank. A lot of them are located in the room or the pump house itself. So if
Yep.
your pump house or pump room has the altitude valve inside, uh, you can run that sensing line from within that room. Like Justin said, though, not on the suction side of the fire pump itself, um, back to the tank.
Yeah, if you got like a little dog run or whatever between the
Yeah.
pump house and the tank connected, just
Yeah.
when they build the tank, have a little port there for your sensing line.
Yeah, true
Uh,
story. True story about the first ever altitude valve that Chad and I ever came across, and we had both phones going. So to set it, I was on FaceTime looking at Chad's phone, and he was outside, and to set the altitude valve together from afar, It
It
was great.
sucks.
It was a
Yeah.
great time. I had to like download the PDF and learn what an altitude valve kind of was.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Go
man.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I feel like altitude valves back in the day were a little bit better and I guess more fine-tuned of an adjustment, whereas now it seems like the gap between when you're setting that spring tension on there, the gap between the low water level and the and Bobby, you probably saw this too, but the cut off level is way too high, so you might have it trying to get set to come on at this point, and now you're overflowing the tank all the time.
Oh yeah,
So
just
that's why I like
flooding
those.
out the neighborhood. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
like
what
those float ones.
should we crank the spring? Yeah, crank the spring down. Give it a couple turns to see what happens.
Yeah,
Spring
right,
or
exactly.
springs, depending on the
No,
size
no,
of your
no. Go
tank.
back, wrong way. Oh, that's awesome.
Now, what about like some what we would say simple things, as in a sprinkler tech comes into a pump room, he does his monthly pump run, and then there's too much. He thinks there's too much water dripping into the cup. So, what should a tech do? What's proper? Should she just crank down until he gets a couple of drips? I mean, what does he back it out and then redo it and retighten it, or like what's the proper way to kind of do this, or when do you not touch it?
Um, Best judgment, honestly. In regards to the dripping, I've always been told by a lot of old school people, and a lot of people have this one mentality that is just one drip per second. I wouldn't want that on my pump if I had a building. That's a horrible idea. The more water, the better, as long as it's not being problematic overspraying to any nearby components in the pump room
Absolutely.
itself. So it's a cooling system at the end of the day.
Preach,
So
brother.
you're going to want more water running through that packing because less water is going to create more friction in between the packing and the shaft sleeves, and that's going to give you a lower lifespan on your shaft sleeves themselves. So the more water, the better. And I believe Peerless guards have a big old sticker on them that states something along the lines of you're required a minimum of 35 to 60 drips per minute, but the more water, the better. So I myself, whenever I do a repack, a rebuild, I always prefer a stream. And a lot of times, if you have new packing, you don't want to try to adjust that to perfection because that packing is going to swell up over time. And once it does, you won't have any more water.
Guys, I love this guy. Get him on every episode. Everything he just said is verbatim what I would have said. Like the more water, the better. As long as it's not spraying all over the place, who cares? Granted, you don't want it like here. We typically have it. Well, not typically. You can have it drain into the floor, or sometimes people will put it out the back wall if it's a standalone pump house. You don't want it so wet out in the yard that it's going to get a lawnmower stuck or something. But yeah, the more water, the better. We care more about the pump than we do about
let
the
that baby
water
drip.
bill.
Let that baby
Yep.
drip.
Now, another one is, I guess if you're familiar with the bolts that hold the glands on OSMY valve, I'm sure a lot of you sprinkler guys have seen these bolts get completely corroded, and
Yeah.
hopefully none of you have experienced trying to adjust one and they snap.
Mm.
So it's not always a good idea to to adjust the swing bolts on a fire pump, even if you have excessive leaking and overspraying, because you might go from having that pump in service to overspraying to having to leave it out of service.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
When you see the corrosion, don't touch it, essentially.
yeah, use your best judgment. It's gonna depend on the amount of corrosion. I guess if you try to snug it and you feel like it's too tight, I just leave it alone until it gets serviced. Unfortunately, I know a lot of building guys, they don't want that water, excessive water, but it's either that or you can end up in a situation like that on a Friday afternoon.
Grab my 8-inch pipe wrench and crank that some bitch, huh?
Right off.
I'm
So
cranking it. Stop leaking.
in terms of like a new guy in the pump room, and you mentioned monthly runs, Brian, but the first thing you got to look for on an electric fire pump when it's running is make sure the casing relief valve is discharging water. When that motor and pump are spinning, like all that mechanical energy is turning to heat, right? And it's got to go somewhere. So the whole purpose of the casing relief valve is to discharge some water and reduce the heat in that pump. So if you are running a pump and that casing relief valve is not dumping anything, either adjust it or stop the pump at that point. And also use your judgment on that as well, because like some of these newer clay valve 55Ls, they're tremendous. Like you can adjust them, they're going to last for years. But at the same time, like some of these older Kunkels, like you try and adjust it and you adjust it open, now the fucker won't shut off no matter what you do, and it's going to be flowing water all the time. So yeah, use your judgment on that.
You can get a brand new Kunkel and it's probably not gonna shut.
Yeah, yeah.
So it depends, and yes, he's correct. Clay valve now makes, or at least we're installing now the 20 to 300s standard instead of just 20 to 200 or 20 to 300, depending on the system pressure itself.
How many of those you got in the truck?
I've probably got about 3 or 4 right now at all times. Same thing with air release valves, and
He's running a cell, Bobby.
I love clay valve, but the air release valve they make is not a great product.
Yeah, I mean, so that's another good point is all the pump manufacturers, I know Chris is in there. What up, Dilday? Stop sending the clay valve air release valve. It's a piece of junk. Like as soon as you put water on it, it's leaking out of there. Switch back to the Valmatic, the blue guy.
Good old
with the round
Valmatic
top.
never fails, and if it fails, your chances
Yeah.
are slimmer compared to
See
clay
that?
valve.
Right
Yeah.
to the source. Right to the source. Just we're connecting it. Info, boom. You heard it here first, Chris Dilday.
Oh, he knows it. I complain to him all the time.
What about repacking without taking off the bonnet? If you just take out that packing and then push some new ones in there, what are your thoughts on that?
I always get complaints on posts that I've made because I've had a lot of people tell me, you're doing it wrong, you're doing a horrible job, you guys suck because you're not taking the lid off. And it's like, taking the lid off on every pump doesn't give you access to the packing to begin with. And external repacks are completely okay per NFPA. They don't tell you you're required to remove the lid. If you wanted me to remove the lid, I would charge extra for that. So it depends on how much our customer is wanting to spend. You know, I have one customer in particular in the Houston area that every repack they ask for is an internal repack. I have other companies that save the money and they go with an external. And if I show up and they call for an external and I feel like it's better to do it internally, we'll let them know, and they can decide whether they want to do it or not. But they make tools to repack a pump externally. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with repacking a pump externally. And we might have briefly talked about this on the last episode. If you're doing your 5-year inspection on your fire pump, on your fire sprinkler system, I always feel like nobody ever cares about doing an inspection internally on the fire pump, man. Until sometimes it might be too late, or I feel like take it apart every now and then. If you had that contract, that customer for many years, and you've never seen the lid off, probably go ahead and take it apart, and you might find something crazy in there.
But yeah, Brian, if you're in Atlanta and you come across an SPP pump out there that's in service, don't pull the lid to repack it because it's not going to do you any good because it's a cartridge style pump, just like an AC is. So if you pull the lid, you're just going to be looking at the top of the cartridge, and you still have to do a external repack, or to be able to completely repack it, you'd have to pull bearings and pull the stuffing boxes off. So you don't want to do that. So ACs and SPPs, yeah, and Armstrongs too. Yeah, just pull them through the outside.
Valvematic. Zach says Valvematic. Chris says Valvematic. That's what we want.
We'll ship them that way, Chris. Don't just say it.
Matthew Coates, talk about how often the fire pump piping isn't hydrostatically tested at 200 with the rest of the system. Really?
So, yeah, I mean, one thing I run into a lot. I don't know if it's going to answer Matthew's question.
I always tested every piece of pipe that I possibly could.
Yeah. So what I run into is a lot of guys that are installing high pressure pumps that don't have any experience. Like they might be hydroing to 200 for everything, but NFPA says that if you have a pump that's over 200 psi, now you have to hydro to 50 psi
50
greater
pounds
than
over.
whatever. Exactly. So I had one that was going to churn at like 300 psi, and I was like, guys, where did you hydro this thing at? They said 200. So I was like, it's supposed to be hydro to 350. Like you're way under. I'm not going to turn this thing on. So that was unfortunate.
I always loved the 50 over, and in Boston, almost every time I was doing 250. Every test was 250.
Yeah.
And so like 200 seems silly, and once you do 250 for years, 200 almost doesn't seem adequate anymore. And it's like just do 250. Like it's like pump it, like it will hold 300.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't recommend it, but I like 250. 50 pounds over. 50 pounds over 200. Rebuild horizontal split case or vertical inlines?
Whatever's on the schedule doesn't matter to me. It's the same thing, man.
But you don't see one and one doesn't give you like googly eyes, and one you're like, ah.
I
But see,
I I enjoy the more difficult the pumps that are in horrible shape. I feel like they give me a better sense of what's that word?
You can like
Accomplishment.
Yeah, yeah. Once I'm done with the job and I look back, I'm like, yeah, I did that. You know, every pump's pretty easy, accessible, and whatnot, and it's like, oh, anybody could have done that, and it's like, yeah, it's not that great.
See,
damn
when
JB.
I've only worked on horizontal, so when I see a vertical, I'm like, ugh, I don't know about this, you know.
see, my thing about verticals, and this difference from Mike, because I'm I'm 6'5", and Mike's a little bit shorter than that. So a lot of these verticals are mounted like on the fucking ground, and like I have to like get down hands and knees to pull. It's no fun. So yeah, give me a split case every day. Fuck a
You gotta
vertical
give us a video on your next like
Yeah, we
when you're
want to
laying
see
down
of
you
me
do
trying to
it.
stand up.
laying down on your
Yeah,
belly with your back with your feet up, like
right.
kicking behind you, working from
Yeah,
your belly.
exactly.
Jeremy Box
Since
says he is testing a building right now at 294. That is a lot of pressure.
get it, JB.
Pucker
Shout
up.
out to Jeremy.
You're
I like Jeremy.
using the hydra the jockey. I always love testing with the jockey. Just crank the controller up, let it pump to whatever you need it to.
I feel like if you have a brand new system and you don't know how to do the math or find out if your jockey pump can build whatever pressure that your system is calling for, a good thing to do just to start off is try to build pressure with that jockey pump, and you might find out whether it can build it or not. But after that, it's just always fire pump. Uh, nothing's gonna
If
beat
it
the fire
stands up
pump.
about this high, chances are
Yeah, it's gonna make it then.
she gonna do some pumping.
Yeah, and you can always shut that inch and a quarter control valve downstream and just fire the jockey pump up, see what the max pressure is, and that'll tell you if before you waste all day trying to pump up with a pump that's only going to make it to 179 or something.
Yep. I think that was the fastest one yet. Like that was just boom. I just blinked. You guys are just fact after fact after tip after advice. The chat went
Super
crazy. We got
educational,
21
man.
people still here. So let's give what do we want to end it with?
Ended with is what I'm on
What's
vacation
the
right now.
Mike?
Oh,
What's the pump room you would most want to work at? Like what building is the pump room that you'd be like, hey, I want to go work on that pump?
Like a building that I know or a style of building?
Anything like a famous building, or one that you
Um,
know.
give me 1 second. Hold on.
All right.
let's hear yours while he's gone.
So that I have not done. I mean, I would love to do some in New York City, right? A lot of theirs are the wound rotor style motors, what they call a manual fire pump. So I would love to go work on one of those or see one of those even. It would be pretty epic. So like the Empire State Building to just
Yeah.
say one.
Oh, okay. What do you got, Mike?
Oh, before I answer that, right now that he said Empire State Building, I did a warehouse that was retrofitted maybe about a year or so ago in the Houston area. For those, if anyone's familiar with Houston, kind of like Jersey Village side. Uh, and the building engineer there had pictures of himself back in the 90s being a building engineer of at the Twin Towers. And I thought that was pretty cool. He had his long curly hair, that he had gotten permed or something. And it was, it was kind of a cool thing to run into somebody that worked there at one point in time.
Imagine them
It's like,
pumps.
yeah, and he actually had a picture in the fire. Well, I guess mechanical room for that one is not just the pump room, and you can kind of see just get the fire pump kind of off in the corner, but I couldn't tell if it was electric or diesel. Um, but cool, that was pretty cool. In regards to facilities that I think like, oh, where would I go? Um, I mean, I visited so many cool facilities. I feel like one of the cool ones that I've done recently was the SpaceX facility. That was fun. I've done Tesla. We just did. I've done a couple AI facilities in Texas and Oklahoma. So I don't think I'm
Big. Those are
missing.
some big ones, right? Like what, 750,000 square foot buildings are bigger.
Yeah, and multiple
What's what
multiple
size?
fire
What size
pumps.
pumps?
Since there's multiple fire pumps, for example, one of the most recent AI facilities I went to, I think it might be about six or eight 1500 GPM pumps.
Oh,
And they
okay.
just did an order for I think another two, and these might be 2500 GPM or something along those lines.
Oh,
So
okay. So
they
pretty similar.
distribute, yeah, anything after 5000 GPM, it's better to go and get multiple pumps.
Well, that's
Yeah,
another
for
fact.
sure.
Another fun fact.
Yeah.
So we've got one coming up. Hopefully this year. The pump house, it has, I think, already shipped out. But it is 4 5,000 GPM pumps going down to Louisiana, all in one pump house. So it's going to be pretty epic to go do that startup.
I can't wait to see that Fire Pump Friday video.
A
Boys
lot
and
of water,
girls.
buddy.
Boys and girls.
I've noticed the 5000 GPMs you've posted are all diesels.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
I've
never
never done
seen
an
a,
electric.
I've never seen a 5000 diesel. I've seen like 4500, 4000. But for the most part, or at least all the 5000s, the few that I've seen, they're all electric.
Are they 500 horse? Is that what they
Oh,
electrics?
good question. I can check and get back with you later. But I don't think they even reach, or they. I'll have to double check. I don't want to give you an answer and lie to you.
I know
So
we're
I
just
did.
sitting here on Zoom and it might not seem it, but this is like some real high quality content right here. This is some
I'm
good.
listening to Mike. Yeah,
This is
it's
some good
great.
stuff. No, but I mean the both of you guys are great at what you do. Appreciate all of this. What were you gonna say?
We'll
My
have to
bad.
come. We'll have to have y'all both back on.
What were you saying, Justin? I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I did a facility in Arkansas that was a oil refinery, and I know Mike's got oil refineries all over the place, but I never get to go to any. And they had 3 5,000s out there. One was a brand new diesel that we provided. Then there was an existing electric, and believe it or not, a steam turbine that was 5,000 GPM. So you've got
See,
a 5,000 GPM pump on this side, joined via a shaft to a turbine on the other side that's just running steam. Like the coolest shit. It was
that
awesome.
is so cool.
Oh, I guess I think most people won't know or care for this fact, but Justin, here in Texas, my beautiful country of Texas, the Capitol building has a counterclockwise engine.
Nice. I got a call on
Wow.
Thursday asking for a price to replace a pump at a hospital, and it's a 1992 Detroit that's left-hand rotation. So like the entire pump room's got to get ripped apart
What's
Oh
to replace
the
this
best
no.
thing.
way to
Well,
tell if it is counterclockwise?
So if you're like picture yourself sitting on the engine looking at the pump, right? So you're looking at the pump. If the water's coming in on the left-hand side, that's left-hand rotation. If it's coming on the right-hand side, it's right-hand rotation.
If 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 you walk into any pump room, and I see this all the time, people think because they're standing at the front door that's gonna determine whether it's right hand or left hand, rotation. Always the furthest point away from the pump itself on the driver. So if you look at the engine, where the drive shaft connects with the fire pump or coupling, depending on what you have, that's normally what we consider the backside of the engine. And if you get on the what most people would think is the backside of the engine, furthest point from the pump, that's what we would consider the front side, and that would apply to the electrical drivers as well.
But yeah, so like
Super
Clark does
interesting
not make
facts.
a left-hand rotation engine anymore, and that one being from 1992, like that's got to be one of the last like 20 that they probably did for fire pumps in North America, and that was just a Detroit thing, so they could do it with Detroits. I've seen some old Cummins 855s that were like that as well, where you had two pumps in there, one left-hand rotation, one right-hand rotation in the same pump room. So kind of cool, but quite impractical to have to deal with today when we can't get that.
And then so I guess one last one before we go. What kind of fire pump testing equipment you guys got on the truck?
Hose monsters, pedalless nozzles.
See, I always get told or asked how come I'm stuck on the old school equipment, but no shade against anyone, but a lot of people that go around testing and they have pedalless monsters don't have the amount of stuff I have in my truck to service literally anything at a random point in time. Um, I'm good with my old school plate pipes. The accuracy is pretty high. They don't fail me. I'd rather deal with just the, you know, few gauges for the pump itself and my pedo than dealing with.
You're going with the handheld.
Yeah.
Oh, we need comparison videos.
Yeah, he loves getting soaking wet, I guess.
No,
I feel
I
like
bet
if
he
you
doesn't
do it
get
enough,
I bet he doesn't get that wet.
if you do it enough times, I'm not getting wet.
I haven't done it in a long time, so I'm getting wet.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys got to make a video of of a comparison, and
A crossover.
I'll take this question and clip it, and then add those two videos together.
Perfect.
Seriously, I really appreciate you guys. This is awesome.
Thank you guys
Yeah,
for
Of
coming
course.
on. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
We're gonna have to
Of
do this
course.
again.
thanks for
Episode
what you guys
200.
do for the industry.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean,
Appreciate you.
this was fun. I enjoyed this. I learned. I hope everybody else in the chat learned. There was 20 something people at one point. Appreciate every one of you guys being in here. Someone's still just hitting that heart button. I love it. Keep hitting it. Daryl joined late. Daryl, watch the recap. Daryl, this was a good one.
Yeah, you gotta watch it. I'm gonna rewatch it tomorrow. I'm like, all right, what did I miss?
So many facts. It was so fast. Just look down and boom, we're already over an hour. Well, we'll see you guys next Thursday
Yeah,
with Jaeger and his father. Is that still
I'll get
on?
with him. Yeah. It's
Yep.
still kind of pending. He's in DC right now, advocating for the fire service. So he's
But he's out working.
putting at work. Yeah. So
That's it.
thank you so much, Jaeger, for doing that. For
Everybody else, I hope
giving
you
your
have a
time
great
for
night.
fire service.
Thank you guys for tuning in and giving us as much knowledge as you could in 1 hour. I'll see you guys on Instagram tomorrow.
Absolutely, guys.